The universe had long believed Earth to be just another backwater planet, rich in emotion, primitive in thought, and reckless in action. That was how the Galactic Council described humanity, unfit for the stars. For years, Earth had petitioned to join the Galactic Coalition, and each time the answer had been the same: denied. They said humans were too violent, too chaotic, too unpredictable to be trusted among higher civilizations. But what the Council forgot was that violence, chaos, and unpredictability had kept humans alive for thousands of years, and one day they pushed the wrong button. It started with a lie. The Council claimed that a small mining outpost on Titan, Saturn's largest moon, violated interstellar resource laws. They said Earth wasn't allowed to harvest Council-classified ore from any moon or planet not officially part of the Galactic Accord. The humans offered negotiation, asked for time to dismantle the operation and avoid conflict. They sent diplomats, scientists, peacekeepers, but one by one, those emissaries disappeared. Quietly, without a trace. A week later, the entire Titan outpost was gone, blown to dust, no warning, no explanation. 73 scientists, engineers, and workers gone, burned alive by a pulse bomb made of antimatter, technology Earth didn't even have access to. They tried to cover it up, of course, sent a half-assed transmission to Earth, blaming the explosion on a faulty reactor core. But humanity knew better. The Council had sent a message, so Earth sent one back. It began with silence. Weeks passed. No response. No retaliation, no threats. The Council celebrated. They believed Earth was broken, that humanity was tucking its tail and backing down. What they didn't see was what happened underground. Every lab, every factory, every launch bay on Earth began working around the clock. Old Cold War bunkers were reopened. Secret military satellites flickered back online. The UN dissolved overnight. In its place rose something new: the collective. One flag, one command, one mission: revenge. You see, the Galactic Council made the same mistake all conquerors make. They underestimated the people with nothing to lose. In a dark steel room beneath what used to be Geneva, the highest-ranking military minds sat around a jagged table. General Aria Volkova, born in Siberia, scarred by 6 battlefields, tapped her metal fingers against a datapad, the rhythm sharp and fast. "How many are confirmed dead?" she asked without lifting her gaze. 73. "No survivors," replied Commander Malik Anwu from the African Space Division. "Any comms from the station before the blast?" Malik slid a video chip across the table. Volkova inserted it into the holodisplay. The grainy footage showed a scientist with blood on her face screaming into the lens. Behind her, alarms blared and walls sparked with fire. "They're not pirates! I repeat, they're not pirates! It's—" The screen cut to static. Volkova closed her eyes, took a slow breath, then said one thing: "Launch Operation Retribution." In orbit above Earth, hidden behind cloaked tech stolen from a crashed alien scout ship 5 years earlier, floated the Leviathan, Earth's first interstellar warship. 5 times the size of any Council cruiser, built in secret, born of desperation. Its hull was forged from asteroid-mined steel, its engines powered by a dangerous mix of stolen alien tech and human ingenuity, and its AI, codenamed Judgment, wasn't bound by Council law. It was designed to learn, to adapt, to fight dirty. At its helm stood Captain Elias Drake, a man with no family, no home, and nothing left to love but vengeance. His son had been on Titan. The launch was silent. No warning, no transmission, no speeches, just a single ship warping out of Earth's orbit, vanishing into the black, headed straight toward the heart of the Council's territory, Delaris Prime, their capital planet. Back in the Council chambers, The 12 High Elders debated trade routes and colony taxes, sipping plasma wine, draped in gold silks and ignorance. They had no idea that in 5 Earth days the skies above Delaris would split open. They had no clue that a human voice would echo through their defense network, speaking only one word: boom. And then Earth's fury would shake the stars. They always said the stars were peaceful, silent, eternal. But when the Leviathan tore through the outer rings of Delaris Prime, the silence died screaming. Captain Elias Drake stood on the command deck, his eyes locked on the massive holographic projection of the Council's homeworld. Delaris shimmered like a blue-green jewel floating in space, surrounded by defense grids, orbital stations, and hundreds of patrol ships. It looked serene, like Earth once did before everything went to hell. "Status," he said coldly. Lieutenant Sarah Quinn, his second in command and a former orbital physicist turned war tactician, tapped a few keys on her console. "We've entered their sensor net," she said, voice tight. "Stealth field holding. Their satellites haven't picked us up yet. We've got 30 minutes max before their AI flags the anomaly." Drake nodded. "Target the outer comm relays. EMP rounds. No deaths. Not yet." He wasn't here to start a war with the people. No, the fury of Earth wasn't meant for the innocent. It was for the architects, the elites who sat in gilded towers, who signed death warrants from thrones of crystal and marble. "EMP locked," said Quinn. Drake leaned forward slightly, a hard glint in his eye. "Let's knock." A low hum vibrated through the Leviathan as its forward cannons powered up. The ship's weaponry wasn't elegant. It wasn't alien. It was brutal. Human. Built to punch harder, last longer, and never quit, just like the species that built it. 5 high-altitude comm towers orbiting Delaris flashed white, then blinked out. The Council's communication grid disabled. Just like that. Sirens wailed across Delaris Prime. Now they saw it. In the Grand Chamber, panic spread like fire. Council elders stumbled from their high-backed seats, eyes wide, robes flapping as they shouted over each other in a dozen alien tongues. "What is happening?" Was it a system failure? "No, this is an attack." A synthetic voice, cold and emotionless, echoed from the chamber walls. "Unregistered vessel has breached planetary perimeter. Communications disrupted. Defense grid offline. Initiating threat protocol Epsilon 7. Council Elder Varn Thol, a thin-skinned, long-necked creature from the Virex system, Toev, clutched his chest. "This can't be. Who would dare breach Delaris Prime? This world is sacred." Then the main view screen powered on, and Captain Drake's face appeared. He wore black armor with no insignia. His beard was rough, his eyes bloodshot. Behind him, the Leviathan's bridge blinked with red lights and motion. He didn't posture. He didn't smile. "Council," he said simply, "you killed 73 of our people on Titan. No trial, no warning, no mercy." Some of the elders gasped. Others looked confused. 1 or 2 even laughed. "Earth?" one whispered in disbelief. "They're primitives. They don't have this technology," Drake continued, unfazed. "You called us savages, said we were unfit for the stars, that we weren't evolved enough to sit among you." He leaned closer to the screen. "We agree." Then the transmission cut. The skies opened. The first wave came fast. Not nukes, not plasma bombs, not even kinetic rods, just fear. The Leviathan launched thousands of drones, tiny, insect-sized bots that hacked into Delaris's transport grids, atmospheric towers, and surveillance systems. Within minutes, every piece of automated infrastructure on the planet began to fail. Maglev trains crashed mid-transit. Sky farms lost oxygen control and plummeted into the oceans. Shields around their energy reactors flickered and died. And the people of Delaris, a planet that hadn't seen war in 400 years, began to run. Captain Drake watched it all unfold with a storm behind his eyes. He didn't flinch, didn't cheer. This wasn't about glory. It was about message. Down below, one man in particular saw the flames, Counselor Rex Jal, the one who'd pushed hardest for Earth's denial. He was the one who greenlit the Titan containment. He called it a necessary purge of unregulated primitives. He had no idea that one of the Titan scientists was Elias Drake's son, Adam. He knew now. Back on Earth, the collective watched through hidden feeds. Every city, every underground base, every colony on Mars and Luna was tuned in. The president of the collective, an older woman named Rena Solari, once a UN peace envoy, stood in front of a crowd of billions. No fancy dress, no political smile, just a simple message. "We never wanted this," she said. "But when diplomacy is answered with murder, when justice is mocked by arrogance, we do not kneel, we do not forget." She paused, and now the stars will know who we are. The crowd erupted in a thunder of applause, anger, and pride. Back in orbit, things were heating up. A fleet of council warships had arrived, 30 in total. Sleek, curved ships, glowing with blue cores and reinforced hulls. The largest, the Seraphian, carried over 2,000 elite soldiers. They approached fast. "Here comes the welcome party," said Lieutenant Quinn. "Let them come," Drake replied, cracking his neck. "Let's see if their perfect fleet bleeds." The first battle in Earth's interstellar history began in the shadow of Delaris Prime. And it was beautiful. The Leviathan moved like a beast, too big to fly, too stubborn to fall. It spun, twisted, and tore through the enemy lines with brute force. Human pilots, trained in zero-gravity dogfighting, used suicide curve tactics, fast passes, fake jumps, micro-warp flickers that made enemy systems short-circuit. One council ship went down, then 3, then 9. The Seraphian held its ground, its captain a legendary warrior named Kale Tor, a reptilian general known across the stars for never losing a battle. He spoke calmly as Leviathan's plasma scorched his port side. "This ship will not fall to apes," he growled. "Charge forward, ram them if you must." But then the Leviathan did something unexpected. It stopped. Frozen. Drake's voice crackled through an open comm. "Captain Kale Tor," he said. "You're a fighter, I respect that. But this fight isn't yours." The Seraphian sensors began to flash, unstable radiation signatures. Kale Tor frowned. "What are you doing, human?" "We found your AI uplink," Drake replied. "Buried in your nav core. It's not yours anymore." Kale Tor's eyes widened. "No." Too late. A pulse wave erupted from the Leviathan, a pure data bomb, coded in a language Earth never taught anyone else. It fried the Seraphian's AI. The lights on the council ship went out. Its thrusters stalled. Its weapons powered down. One of the mightiest vessels in the Galactic Council's navy drifted helplessly through space, dead in the water. Drake watched in silence. "Send rescue pods," he told Quinn. "We don't kill those who surrender." Quinn stared. "Are you sure?" "They're not the enemy," he said. "The enemy's down there." Back on Delaris, chaos reigned. Counselor Rex Jal stood in his mansion overlooking the sapphire spire, watching as smoke poured from the once pristine skyline. Panic alarms screamed from the streets. Fires danced through the gardens. The people chanted one name over and over. Earth, Earth, Earth. He was terrified. Then his wall exploded. Not with bombs, not with missiles, with footsteps. A team of human operatives, special forces bred from Earth's darkest military projects, walked in wearing matte black armor and helmets shaped like wolves. No sound, no mercy. One by one, they took the counselors alive. Rex Jal tried to flee through a secret tunnel, but a boot slammed into his spine, knocking him flat. He looked up into the face of a soldier with no name, only a red streak painted across his helmet. "No," Jal begged. "Please, I was just following orders." The soldier didn't speak, just pulled out a holo recorder and played back Jal's words from 5 months earlier. "Burn the Titan station to ash. They're just humans." Jal whimpered. "I didn't mean it. It was policy, a misunderstanding." He looked around desperately. "Where is the council? Where is—" The soldier stepped aside, and Captain Drake walked in. Drake stood over Jal, staring down at the man who murdered his son with a signature. He didn't speak for a long time. Then, quietly, he said, "My son was 17. He was building a telescope on Titan's edge. His name was Adam." Jal shivered. "I'm sorry." "No, you're not," Drake said, "but you will be." He turned to his squad. "Secure him. Bring the rest. We're not done yet." Hours later, the Leviathan hovered high above Delaris Prime, holding in its hangars 12 trembling council members. The people of Delaris watched from every screen as their leaders were brought before a tribunal, not killed, not tortured, judged. Earth had come with fury, yes, but it brought justice, too. Drake stood before the galaxy and declared Earth's independence from galactic rule. "We are not your pets," he said. "We are not savages, and we are not afraid." He paused, looked into the camera. "If you touch Earth again, we will not come with one ship next time. We will come with all of them." And with that, Leviathan turned away and jumped to warp, vanishing into the black. Delaris was left burning, but alive, the Council, broken, but spared. Because that's the thing about humanity. We can be monsters, we can be cruel, but when we choose restraint, when we choose mercy, that's when we're most terrifying. In the days that followed the Battle of Delaris Prime, the galaxy held its breath. The Galactic Council didn't release a public statement. It couldn't. Half of its members were prisoners, and the other half were hiding in deep space, too afraid to return to their homeworld. The once pristine chambers of Delaris were now scarred with plasma burns, shattered glass, and the bitter stench of failure. The silence said more than any speech could have. Across the stars, the unthinkable truth began to spread. Earth won. Not just militarily, symbolically, philosophically. Earth, primitive, chaotic, and long mocked as a species of emotional barbarians, had walked into the heart of the most powerful alliance in the known universe and left standing. With hostages. It wasn't just a victory, it was a statement. And the rest of the galaxy listened. On the distant mining world of Core 7, where the insectoid krill were worked like slaves in the Council's resource tunnels, whispers echoed in the dust. "You hear about the humans? They took Delaris. No way. I saw the footage. That ship, Leviathan, it cut through their fleets like butter. They made the Council beg." Some laughed, some wept, but all of them looked up at the stars that night with something new in their chests: hope. For centuries, the Council had ruled with silken gloves hiding iron fists. Every rebellion was crushed in silence, every uprising erased from records. But Earth didn't just survive. Earth retaliated, and in doing so, it broke the illusion that the Council was untouchable. Suddenly, other species started asking the forbidden question: what if we didn't obey? Captain Elias Drake didn't care much for politics. He sat alone in his private quarters aboard the Leviathan, staring at a small, old photograph, one of the few personal things he kept. Adam. His son, smiling in the Martian dusk, arms around a half-built telescope. Dust clinging to his boots, his eyes full of curiosity, of dreams. Drake swallowed hard, The weight in his chest never left, not even after Delaris. There was no peace in revenge, only silence. A soft chime pulled him from his thoughts. Lieutenant Quinn stepped in. "We've received a transmission." "From Earth?" "No." Her voice was odd, measured, almost cautious. "From the Zir Dominion." Drake raised an eyebrow. The Zir were a warrior species from the outskirts of the Council's influence, feared for their size, their strength, and their brutal culture. For years, they'd acted like mercenaries for the Council, never took sides, never made alliances, never talked. Until now. "Put it through," Drake said. The screen lit up with the face of General Dorcall, a massive creature with obsidian black skin and glowing orange eyes. Sitting on a throne of bones. "Human," he rumbled. Drake didn't blink. "That's me." "We watched what you did to Delaris." Dorcall leaned forward, smoke curling from his nostrils. "And we liked it." Drake said nothing. "You did what we've wanted to do for a century. You shamed them, made them bleed. You fought like warriors. Why are you contacting me?" The Zir bared his teeth. "Because war is coming." Drake leaned in slightly. "From who?" Dorcall's voice lowered. "Them." The screen shifted. A new image appeared. A map of the Outer Rim. Systems blacked out, colonies missing. "These worlds didn't fall to rebellion," the Zir said. "They were wiped. No survivors, no wreckage, just gone." Drake frowned. "Council retaliation?" "No." Dorcall's tone grew heavy. "Something older. Something beyond the Council." Drake stared at the data. 13 colonies vanished in a single cycle. "We believe your attack on Delaris woke it up," Dorcall continued. "The Council kept it buried, hoping to never need it again. But they're desperate now. They'll unleash it, on you, on us, on everyone." "What is it?" Dorcall's eyes dimmed. "They call it the Architect, a machine god, a relic from the First War, not created by the Council but bound by them, a weapon with no soul and no loyalty." Drake exhaled slowly. "And now it's free." The Zir nodded once. "You hurt the Council. They'll respond by releasing hell." Later that night, Drake gathered the Leviathan's senior officers in the war room. The lights were low. A holographic projection of the Architect's last known trajectory spun slowly in the center. Quinn studied it with narrowed eyes. "We're not equipped for this. If it's Council-made, fine, we've fought that. But this is different." Dr. Lice Mendez, the Leviathan's chief engineer and ex-CERN scientist, tapped through data files. "If this thing predates Council tech, it could be beyond anything we've ever seen. We're talking sentient AI with god-tier weaponry, terraforming abilities, temporal manipulation." Drake folded his arms. "Why would the Council keep something like this?" "Insurance," Mendez said. "A failsafe. Or maybe they didn't even control it. Maybe they just hoped it would obey." Quinn looked to Drake. "What's the move?" Drake glanced around the table. "We can't run. If we do, Earth gets hit first. The Council will paint us as terrorists. Then they'll send the Architect to wipe our entire species clean." He looked back at the map. "We find it. We track it. We learn its weakness." "And if it has none?" Mendez asked. Drake's voice turned quiet. Cold. "Then we make one." Meanwhile, the Council scrambled in secret. Their once loyal allies were fracturing. The Krill had started sabotaging mining operations. The Valeri had refused to send tribute. Even the banking clans were beginning to cut ties. And worst of all, the Architect had stopped responding. They'd summoned it with a desperate code ping, believing it would follow ancient protocol, that it would eliminate the human threat with surgical precision. Instead, it had destroyed 3 of their own border colonies before vanishing into deep space. They couldn't admit it, but they'd lost control. Now, they were looking for someone, anyone who could stop it, even the humans. Weeks passed. The Leviathan followed the architect's trail through dying systems and ghost stations. The signs were always the same: total silence, blackened skies, gravity twisted like taffy. They found one survivor, an Etherian monk named Kalil, drifting alone in an escape pod, his body burned and floating in zero-G stasis. Quinn brought him aboard. He was barely conscious, his voice like wind through broken glass. "It doesn't kill," he whispered. "It unmakes." Drake leaned close. "What is it? What does it want?" The monk's eyes flickered with stars. "To complete the equation." "What equation?" Kalil shook his head slowly. "Existence minus chaos equals perfection." He coughed blood. "You are chaos." Then he died. Drake stared at his reflection in the glass later that night. Chaos, that's what they always called humanity, wasn't it? Too emotional, too reactive, too messy. But maybe that was their strength. Machines crave order. Gods crave worship. But humans? Humans crave freedom, even when it kills them. The Leviathan's AI, Judgment, pinged softly behind him. "Captain, trajectory analysis complete. I believe I've located the architect." Drake turned. "It's headed for Earth." Earth was no stranger to countdowns. We'd stared down ticking clocks for centuries: nuclear threats, climate collapse, asteroid flybys. But this time, the countdown didn't come from a news anchor or a warning siren. It came from space, from the stars, from the architect. Inside the Leviathan, silence gripped the command deck. The AI's voice still echoed in the chamber like a whisper against cold steel. "Trajectory analysis complete. Destination confirmed. Earth." Captain Elias Drake didn't speak at first. He just stood there, jaw locked, eyes fixed on the glowing red path across the holographic star chart. A line of destruction arced from the dead colonies of the Outer Rim straight toward humanity's homeworld. Lieutenant Quinn broke the silence. "ETA?" the AI answered. 6 days, 17 hours, 39 minutes, and falling. Dr. Les Mendez swallowed hard. "That's impossible. We'd need to break half a dozen warp barriers just to make that in time." "We're not going to make it in time," Quinn said. "Not with current propulsion." Drake finally spoke, voice like gravel. "Then we break something." Back on Earth, panic was already rising. The Collective Council had received the data burst from the Leviathan barely 6 hours after the discovery, and while the news wasn't public yet, the signs were impossible to hide. Orbital defense grids were powering up, spaceports shut down. Luna Base 1 recalled all off-world personnel. Mars went dark. Inside a fortified mountain command facility buried beneath the Rockies, President Rena Solari stood in front of a war room screen showing a massive object moving through deep space. "It's real," she whispered. General Aria Volkova, now Supreme Commander of Earth's planetary defense, nodded grimly. "And it's coming straight for us." "How long?" "Less than 7 days." Solari turned. "What are our options?" Volkova didn't answer immediately. She tapped a console and brought up the architect's destruction pattern. "We've scanned the wreckage left behind. Nothing survived, not ships, not colonies, not even rock formations. It reshapes matter at the atomic level, turns planets into dust. We don't have defenses for that kind of power." Solari frowned. "Then what do we have?" Volkova hesitated. "The fallback plan." A hush fell over the room. Someone at the table whispered, "Project Ashfall." The president's face hardened. "No, that's a last resort." Volkova said nothing, because deep down, they both knew it might not be enough either. The Leviathan was running hot. Every engine core was burning red, every technician working double shifts. Mendez and her team were gutting non-essential systems, redirecting power, even stripping gravity modules to shave off warp resistance. In the engineering bay, Quinn stood watching as Mendez welded a plasma stabilizer to the warp ring's inner chamber. "You're going to burn the drive straight through," Quinn said. Mendez didn't look up. "That's the point. If this fails, the ship will be shredded across 1,000 dimensions." Mendez finally met her eyes. "It'll still be faster than dying on Earth with everyone else." Quinn didn't argue, because they both knew this wasn't a rescue mission anymore. It was a race. But speed wasn't the only problem. 2 days into the warp run, a fleet of Council warships appeared from behind the Saturn rings. 5 dreadnoughts bearing the silver crest of the Purity Enclave, the most hardline faction in the Galactic Council. They weren't here to talk. "Message incoming," said Quinn, as the ships locked their weapons. Drake stood calmly on the deck. "Play it." A hologram flickered into existence. A counselor in white robes and cybernetic implants appeared. His voice was serene. "Human vessel, you are in violation of post-assault navigation protocols. You are ordered to stand down immediately and surrender for tribunal cleansing." Drake raised an eyebrow. "Tribunal cleansing?" "You defiled the seat of peace," the hologram said coldly. "Your species is unstable, dangerous, and now contagious." Drake's expression hardened. "We're not the ones wiping planets off the map." "You awakened the architect," the counselor hissed. "We warned you. The galaxy warned you. You unleashed the end." Drake stepped forward. "We didn't unleash anything. You did. You kept it caged, fed it. Now it's free." The hologram glitched. "Surrender or be destroyed." Drake turned to his gunnery officer. "Lock missiles on their flagship. Full payload." "Yes, sir." "Wait," Quinn said quickly. "We can't waste time in a firefight. Every second we lose." Drake nodded. "We're not fighting." He turned back to the comm. "You want to destroy us? Do it. But just know, we're the only ones even trying to stop what's coming." He cut the line. The room held its breath. The Council fleet stayed still. After 30 seconds, their ships peeled away and vanished. Quinn blinked. "They let us go." "No," Drake said. "They're betting we'll die in our own fire. Saves them the ammo." On Earth, preparations were no longer subtle. Civilians were being quietly evacuated to underground sanctuaries. The moon's surface was fortified with kinetic railguns. Mars, despite its silence, was seen powering up its own defense grid, a surprise even to Earth Command. General Volkova stormed into the collective's war room with a live feed. "Look at this." She brought up security footage showing Martian defense stations activating prototype pulse cannons. "Last I checked," she said tightly, "those were mothballed 6 years ago." Solari leaned in. "They knew. They knew before we did." Volkova frowned. "What the hell are they planning?" Then came the message. Straight from Mars. Straight from a man thought dead 10 years ago. "This is Director Kane of Martian Black Command. We are no longer under Earth jurisdiction. Do not interfere. We will handle the architect. Our way." Drake saw the message an hour later. He watched it 3 times in silence. "Kane," he muttered. "You know him?" Quinn asked. "He was my CO, ran Martian Black Ops. We did classified missions together during the lunar siege." "I thought he died." Drake shook his head. "Kane doesn't die. He vanishes." Quinn leaned against the console. "So Mars is going rogue. What's the play?" Drake didn't answer right away, because a darker thought was eating at him. Mars had always felt like the stepchild of the system, resource-rich, politically strained, and full of secrets. But if Kane was back, and he was activating weapons thought illegal even by collective standards. Then maybe Kane didn't plan to defend Earth. Maybe he planned to sacrifice it. 4 days to impact. The Leviathan finally reached Earth's orbit, its hull glowing from heat, its crew exhausted but alive. The collective immediately launched defense drones to escort it down, but the sight of the massive, war-scarred human vessel caused a stir across the planet. News feeds lit up. Leviathan returns. Earth's guardians home. Captain Drake, humanity's last shield. Drake didn't care for the titles. He just wanted answers. He met with General Volkova and President Solari in the Geneva bunker, where data feeds showed the architect tearing through another council colony. This one 10 light-years from Earth. "What's Kane doing?" Drake asked. Solari handed him a tablet. "He's broadcasting to alien networks, recruiting, promising safety, if they follow his command." Volkova spat. "He's building his own empire." "He's promising them peace," Solari said, "in exchange for obedience." Drake grimaced. "So he's doing exactly what the Council did, but red, white, and Martian." 3 days to impact. The architect appeared on the edge of the solar system, not with a ship, not with a fleet. It came alone, a vast symmetrical mass of dark matter and light, moving without propulsion, without sound, without mercy. It was shaped like a pyramid cracked in half, its upper half floating slightly above the lower, held together by invisible gravitational pull. Its surface pulsed with unreadable code. And then, it spoke. Not in language, not in sound, but in thought. Every mind on Earth felt it at once, a pressure in the skull, like something too big trying to squeeze into something too small. "You are imbalance. You are disruption. You are error." Earth's defense satellites opened fire. The architect blinked, and the shots disintegrated in mid-air. Volkova whispered, "Nothing's getting through. 2 days to impact." Kane contacted Earth again. "Stand down," he ordered. "Evacuate Earth. You have 2 days. After that, I will do what must be done." Solari responded immediately. "What the hell are you planning, Kane?" His face remained stone. "Order!" Volkova yelled, "If you launch anything at Earth—" "I'm not launching at Earth," Kane said. "I'm launching through it." He leaned in. "I have something buried beneath Olympus Mons, a relic from before us, left behind by whatever built the architect." Drake's eyes widened. "You're using alien tech?" Kane nodded. "Yes, and it needs a planet to fire from. Earth is in the way." Impact in 48 hours. The galaxy watched. The Council cowered. Mars loaded its weapon. Earth braced. And aboard the Leviathan, Elias Drake prepared for his final stand, not just against a god machine, but against his own species. Because the real war was just beginning. The Earth had gone quiet. Not because there was nothing to say, but because no one knew what to say. Cities kept functioning. Subways still ran. Broadcasts continued. But everything moved like a dream underwater. Slower, thicker, heavier. Everyone knew the architect was coming. Everyone knew the Martians were preparing to fire something they barely understood. And everyone knew Earth was caught in the middle. In the Geneva command bunker, President Rina Solari stared at a live feed of the architect drifting at the edge of the Kuiper Belt. No sound, no heat signature, just presence, a god in motion. General Volkova stood beside her, arms folded, stone-faced. "It's not even accelerating. That's the terrifying part. It doesn't need to." Solari didn't blink. "Status of the planetary shield grid? Fully online, but you know it won't hold. Not for something like this." "What about Kane's weapon?" Volkova grimaced. "He's calling it Project Spearhead, buried under Olympus Mons. Theoretically designed to fracture spatial dimensions with a single pulse, like piercing a black hole with a railgun." Designed by who? Not us. On the Leviathan, Elias Drake stood in the ship's war room, watching the data stream in from deep space probes. The architect had started changing. Its structure shifted subtly every few hours, adapting, evolving. It was learning. And what scared Drake most was what it was ignoring. Human scouts had fired decoy nukes at it, launched radiation pulses, even simulated a warp detonation nearby. Nothing. The architect didn't react because it didn't need to. It had already calculated every threat Earth could offer and deemed them irrelevant. Dr. Mendez tapped frantically on her terminal. "Captain, we have to stop Kane." Drake looked up, jaw tense. "Tell me why." "Because the spearhead doesn't just aim at the architect. It tears space apart in a line. If he fires it from Mars and Earth's in the path, we'll get shredded like paper in a hurricane." Lieutenant Quinn stepped forward. "Could he angle the weapon?" "Sure," Mendez said, sarcastic. "If he wants to tear through Jupiter instead." Drake exhaled slowly. He knows. He just doesn't care. Quinn shook her head. "Kane's betting Earth will evacuate. He wants to wipe the board clean and start a new order. Martian-led. Council-free." "Problem is," Drake growled, "Earth's not leaving." The president of the collective stood in front of the world. This time, no teleprompter, no pre-written script, just a woman with steel in her spine. "My name is Rena Solari," she said to 8 billion people. "And I stand before you as a mother, a daughter of Earth, and a citizen of a planet that refuses to kneel." The screen behind her showed the architect, cold, beautiful, and deathly. "Something ancient is coming for us, something that sees us as a mistake. We are not the first to face it, but we may be the last to survive it." She paused. "Mars has chosen a different path. Director Kane intends to use an alien weapon to destroy the architect, but at the cost of Earth." Gasps filled newsrooms. Panic lit up the net. "He has given us 48 hours to evacuate. We will not. Earth is our home. We built this world from dust and blood and fire. We will not hand it over to machines or madmen." She raised her chin. "Let history remember. When the stars came for us, we stood our ground." Drake stepped off the Leviathan and into the old launch site in Kazakhstan. The air was crisp, the skies gray, and before him stood an old friend in a new body. "Kane," Drake said. The Martian director nodded. "You aged well." "You didn't." Kane smirked. His face was pale, his eyes implanted with glowing red cybernetics, a line of neural ports running down his neck like vertebrae carved from chrome. "I've seen too much," he said. "Time doesn't matter anymore." Drake walked closer. "You're going to fire it?" "Yes." "You'll kill us all." Kane nodded slowly. "Maybe." "Then why do it?" Kane's voice dropped. "Because we're out of time. The architect won't negotiate. It won't stop. I've seen what it leaves behind. I've walked on those dead worlds. Earth can't win this with weapons. It needs sacrifice." Drake's fists clenched. "You're not a martyr, Kane. You're a tyrant in a red suit." Kane stepped forward. "No, Elias, I'm a realist. And the real world? It doesn't run on hope." He turned. "But maybe it can run on fire." Back on the Leviathan, Mendez finished calculations. "There's one shot," she told Quinn. "We could override the architect's logic circuits, force it to calculate infinite paradoxes, burn its processor from the inside out." "With what?" "A quantum loop bomb. We build it, we warp it into the architect's body, we detonate it inside its core. That's suicide. Not if we remote launch. And if it fails?" Mendez went quiet. Quinn finished for her. "Then Earth burns." The final council met in the Geneva bunker. President Solari, General Volkova, Captain Drake, and a screen link to the Martian command. Kane appeared again, this time flanked by armored soldiers. "This is it," he said. "You have 1 day left. Leave Earth." Drake stepped in. "We're not going anywhere, but we are sending something." He nodded to Mendez. A new hologram flickered to life. The Mirror, a quantum loop warhead the size of a car, built from salvaged alien tech, stolen council code, and a dose of human madness. "We deliver this into the architect," Drake said. "It calculates itself into collapse." Kane blinked. "That's insanity. That's humanity." Kane narrowed his eyes. "You try this, and I'll fire Spearhead anyway." Solari spoke. "Then you'll make yourself a god-killer at the cost of the species you claim to save." Kane paused, then killed the feed. 12 hours to impact. The architect reached the edge of Neptune's orbit. Its shadow fell across the stars like a curtain. The Leviathan launched. The Mirror sat in its cargo bay, humming softly. Drake sat in the command chair, flanked by Quinn and Mendez. "This is it," he said. "To the end?" Quinn asked. Drake gave a rare smile. "To the end." The approach was fast, violent. The architect sensed the Leviathan. This time it reacted. It unfolded. Sections of its body bent outward like petals opening to bloom. Inside was nothing but void and spinning code. The Leviathan dove. Missiles flew, lasers cut. The ship screamed. One hit, then another. Hull breach on deck 4, fire in the cargo bay. Drake barked orders. "Stabilize! We need the core intact!" Mendez crawled into the bay, bleeding from her temple, dragging the Mirror into launch position. Quinn rerouted power from life support to shields. Everything burned. Then, lock confirmed. Drake pulled the trigger. The Mirror launched. It soared through the architect's broken skin, vanishing into the body of the god machine. Then, silence. 5 seconds. 10. 20. "Did it fail?" Quinn whispered. The architect froze. Its light dimmed. It pulsed once, twice, and then it screamed, not with sound, not with energy, but with reality itself. The sky twisted, stars blinked out. Time slowed, space folded like paper, and the architect imploded. The last thing Drake saw before blackout was Earth, still turning, still blue, still alive. He woke up 3 days later. Medical bay, Solari at his side. "You did it?" she said quietly. Drake blinked. "Kane?" Her face darkened. "He fired the spearhead just before your bomb went off, but the architect collapsed first. The shot missed, went straight into the void." Drake sat up. "And Kane?" She looked away. "He disappeared." Earth survived. The architect was gone. The council? Shattered beyond recognition. And from the ashes of war, a new chapter began. One where Earth wasn't begging for a seat at the table. One where Earth built the table. The stars were quiet again. But not in the comforting way people used to describe them. Not in the poetic way lovers once stared at them from rooftops, imagining wishes or escape. This quiet was different. It was the kind of silence that follows a car crash, or the moment a room goes still after a man screams and nothing answers. The architect was gone. Earth was still standing, and the galaxy didn't know what the hell to do with either of those facts. Captain Elias Drake stood at the top of a ruined observation deck near the outskirts of Luna Base 1, watching Earth spin below. From here, the blue planet looked untouched, peaceful. But he knew better. The Leviathan had been towed back into dry dock, its hull torn open, its decks scorched and stained. Almost a third of the crew were dead. Others wouldn't speak at all anymore, still haunted by what they'd seen inside the architect. visions, equations that made no sense, names from their past. One pilot kept whispering the word, rewritten, over and over, until he had to be sedated. The human cost of victory always showed up after the medals were handed out. Drake wasn't a hero, not in the way they were painting him. Not in the statues or broadcasts. He was just the man who got angry enough to fire back. In Geneva, President Rena Solari sat at the head of the new Galactic Emergency Council, an ironically named alliance that had formed in the vacuum left behind by the old Galactic Order. Aliens of all kinds filled the room, some in fear, some in awe, some in bitterness. The old council was broken. 3 of its original 12 species had been erased by the architect. 4 more had fallen into total anarchy. The remaining 5 sat with Earth now, some as allies, some as guests, and some because there was no other option left. Earth's victory over the architect, Solari said, was not just a victory for humanity. It was a message. She let her words hang. A message that no empire, no god, and no machine can dictate the fate of the free. The Krill ambassador, once considered lower than livestock by the council, raised his claw. We have waited centuries for justice. Will Earth share its power? Solari answered without hesitation. We won't become the tyrants we just toppled. But deep down, she feared that wouldn't be her choice to make for long. Because Earth was changing. And power. It never just sits still. Back in the shadows of Mars, Kane still lived. His disappearance was intentional, scripted even. No body, no transmission, just gone. But survivors from Olympus Mons swore they'd seen escape pods launch moments after the spearhead fired. One even claimed to have intercepted a rogue signal days later. Looping over and over, the real war hasn't started yet. Others believed Kane had become something more, merged with the Martian AI he'd helped build. A digital ghost, watching, waiting. And on some level, Drake believed it too. 2 weeks after the fall of the architect, Earth launched its first true diplomatic vessel, the Aegis. It wasn't a warship, not on the outside, but beneath the surface it was armored enough to take a full salvo from any known race and keep flying, just in case. Drake was invited to join the maiden voyage. He declined. Instead, he walked into the Leviathan's broken bridge, now mostly powered down, and just sat, surrounded by cracked glass, melted panels, and silence. Lieutenant Quinn found him hours later, leaning against the central console with a drink in hand. You know, she said softly, you could be living like a king right now, probably have your pick of mansions in every city. I hate cities. You hate everything, he smirked. That's not true. I like whiskey and old ships. She sat beside him. You think it's really over? No, he said without hesitation. It's never over. The Council will regroup. Mars isn't done, and there are other architect-class threats out there. She turned to face him. You really think that? He nodded. We woke something when we fired that bomb. Something bigger than any of us. Quinn hesitated. There's something you should see. In the Leviathan's sealed AI core, Judgment, Earth's first true combat AI, was still running diagnostic logs from the architect's destruction. Most were corrupted, data shredded by paradoxes. But one file had survived. Barely. It was video, static-filled. Shaky. It showed the architect's core moments before the mirror detonated inside it. A chamber, impossibly large, glowing with veins of light. In the center, a figure floated, humanoid, or close enough, thin, naked, genderless, eyes black, skin made of something that didn't reflect light, and it looked directly at the camera. Just before the feed cut, it raised one hand and smiled, Dr. Liz Mendez ran the footage 100 times, slowed it down, zoomed, checked every scan. It wasn't metal, she told them later. Not organic either. I don't know what it was. Drake studied the image. That face. It hadn't been confused or afraid. It had been curious. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, rebellion burned like wildfire. On Core 7, the insectoid Krill overthrew their slave masters in a single night. On Velari Prime, the priest kings were dragged from their temples and executed in the streets. Even on Council Loyalist worlds, civil war ignited. And always, always, the same graffiti appeared on the walls. Earth fought back. Humans bleed, but humans burn. Let the stars remember. Earth had become a symbol, but symbols are dangerous because they inspire hope and fear. Inside the new Collective Defense Command on Earth, General Aria Volkova reviewed reports from the outer colonies. She read them in silence, until she reached one transmission that made her heart stop. It came from Eden 3, a terraforming project funded by Earth 3 years earlier. A quiet colony. No weapons, just farmers and engineers. The report was one line. Black Pyramid seen on the horizon. No response from surface teams. She picked up the phone. Get me Elias Drake. Back at Luna, Drake stood in his quarters when the alert pinged. He tapped the tablet. Volkova's face was pale, her voice urgent. We have a problem. He didn't blink. Where? Eden 3. Architect? We don't know. The colony went dark 10 hours ago. No distress signal, just static. We're sending a scout, but if it's real... Drake nodded. Send me instead. Hours later, the Leviathan, patched but still breathing, launched again. A skeleton crew, no parade, no media, just war veterans and a captain with nothing left to prove. Quinn sat beside him, Mendez down in engineering. The crew quiet, focused. Same war, Drake muttered. Different battlefield. As they punched through the warp gate, a single message was sent back to Earth. If we don't return, remember this. Earth didn't start this war. But it damn well won't be the one to end it. The first thing they saw as the Leviathan broke through the warp gate was ashes. Not flames, not smoke, just silence. And ashes. The surface of Eden 3, once a lush green terraformed paradise, was now gray, colorless, a lifeless crust floating beneath dim stars. What should have been rainforests and freshwater oceans was now a landscape of cracked stone and faint electromagnetic distortions. Captain Elias Drake stared from the command bridge, his knuckles white around the armrest. He'd seen destruction before, Delaris, Titan, entire moons shattered by the architect. But this? This felt clean, sterile, as if something hadn't just killed life, it had deleted the concept of it. Any signs of survivors? He asked, barely moving. Lieutenant Quinn tapped furiously at her console. None. No heat. No biosignals. No comms. Dr. Mendez's voice came through from engineering. Atmosphere's intact, but it's wrong. Like the oxygen molecules themselves have been stripped of variance. Like everything's been rewritten to be predictable. Quinn looked up. You're saying the planet's been simplified? Not simplified, Mendez replied. Homogenized. It's all the same. Drake stood. Gear up. We're going down. The Leviathan touched down just outside what used to be Eden 3's capital settlement, Vessel's Hope. Now it was a ghost town. Metal frames twisted into impossible angles, glass reshaped into smooth, unnatural curves. It didn't look like destruction caused by force. It looked like math. As if the planet had been forced to obey a new equation, one written by something that didn't believe in randomness. Drake's boots crunched softly over the ground as he led the squad through the ruins. His rifle was drawn, but it felt useless. His instincts screamed, but there was no enemy. No tracks. No bodies. Quinn swept her scanner through a collapsed corridor. No DNA, not even residue. Where the hell are the colonists? One of the soldiers muttered. There were 3,000 people here. Gone, Drake said. Not dead, just gone. Mendez stepped up to a wall pulsing with faint blue light. She ran her fingers across it. This isn't metal. Then what is it? Code. Drake stared. She held up her scanner. The structure's made of nanite strands woven with embedded logic loops. It's rewriting itself even now. The wall is alive. That's when the sound began. A soft, rhythmic pulse, like breathing. Except it came from everywhere and nowhere at once. The ground vibrated. A low-frequency hum ran through their chests. Then a voice, not in their ears, in their minds. You returned. Drake froze. Did anyone else hear that? Everyone nodded. The spark of chaos, the equation unbalanced, the contamination. The voice was cold, perfect, without gender, without emotion. Quinn raised her weapon. It's the architect again. No, Mendez whispered. This is worse. Back on Earth, alarms lit up. President Solari stood in the war chamber as transmission logs from the Leviathan began to glitch. Audio scrambled, visual feeds distorted by something that shouldn't be there. General Volkova's face was pale. It's talking to them. Through the quantum entanglement link. Is that possible? Not unless it's interfering with their thoughts in real time. Solari stared at the corrupted screen. On it, a phrase appeared. One word repeating endlessly in a spiral pattern. Beginning. Back on Eden 3, Drake led the squad deeper into what used to be the colony's civic center. It had changed. The interior was now a vast hollow sphere, hundreds of meters wide. No doors, no windows, just smooth, reflective walls and floating platforms of shifting geometry. At the center of the chamber hovered a figure. Not the same as before. This one was taller, thinner. Its arms extended like wings. Its skin shimmered like mercury. Its face had no features, just a shifting mask of static. You survived destruction, it said. The squad raised their weapons. Drake held up a hand. Wait. You evade deletion. You delay the convergence. What are you? Drake asked. I am not the architect. Quinn narrowed her eyes. But you created it. We created many. Mendez stepped forward. Who's we? The ones before pattern, before time, before thought. We did not rule. We corrected. The figure turned slowly. You are error, a wild variable, chaos in skin. Drake stepped forward. If you wanted to destroy us, why not just do it? We did. The figure waved a hand, and suddenly the entire crew was frozen. Not physically. Mentally. Their bodies trembled. Their eyes locked. Some wept silently. Others screamed inside their skulls, unable to move. Because in that moment, the entity showed them everything. Earth burning. Children melting into numbers. Time unraveling. Civilizations swallowed by white light. Every possible version of humanity, across every thread of possibility, erased. Again, and again, and again. You do not belong. Then it released them. Drake collapsed to his knees, gasping. Quinn vomited. Mendez was shaking uncontrollably. Drake rose slowly. Why show us that? The entity tilted its head. You returned. Again, always. Unstoppable. Unkillable. You are not part of the program. You are a virus. Drake's voice cracked. Then what is this place? A test bed. A quarantine. A lure. Quinn whispered. You wanted us to come. To confirm the threat persists. Mendez looked up. What threat? The entity finally moved closer. Humanity. Back on the Leviathan, the ship's AI, judgment, suddenly went dark. Then it flickered back online, except it was no longer judgment speaking. You seek understanding. You should seek forgiveness. On Earth, AI systems across the planet began glitching. Smart grids blinked out. Satellites rewrote themselves. Military drones painted civilian targets with no reason. Volkova screamed, "Shut them all down! Disconnect every AI node!" But it was too late. The code had already spread. On Eden 3, the figure raised one long hand. A new shape emerged from the chamber walls. A second architect, smaller, sleeker, more refined. This is the refiner. It will cleanse what remains of the corrupted. Drake's breath caught. You're building a new wave. No, we are releasing it. This galaxy is beyond repair. It will be reformatted. Quinn gritted her teeth. We'll stop it, again. The entity paused. For the first time, it seemed amused. We welcome your resistance. It is part of the pattern now. Then it vanished. And the refiner's eyes lit red. Drake screamed, "Fall back! Back to the ship!" But the chamber warped instantly. Geometry folded in on itself. The exits were gone. The refiner moved like a shadow, liquid, fast, silent. It cut down 2 soldiers before anyone could react, erasing them, not killing, removing. Quinn lobbed a pulse grenade. Nothing. Mendez screamed into her comms, "Judgment, emergency warp lock, now!" The Leviathan's AI, flickering but functional, responded with a low hum. "Partial lock. Prepare for transit in 10. Drake shoved Mendez behind a pillar. "Get to the platform. Go now!" The refiner's tendrils snapped forward. Quinn dove, took the hit meant for Drake. Her body went rigid, gone. No blood, no scream, just gone. Drake turned, empty-eyed, and fired everything. Missiles, plasma, kinetics. Nothing touched it. But the platform shimmered. Transit lock achieved. 5, 4. Drake grabbed Mendez and shoved her onto the platform. 3, 2. The refiner lunged. 1. Flash. They were gone. Back on the Leviathan, the survivors rematerialized in a smoking chamber. Mendez hit the deck, coughing. Drake stood motionless. "Quinn?" No answer. He turned slowly. Only Mendez. Only silence. Back on Eden 3, the refiner stood alone. The planet shifted, and across the galaxy, hidden architects began to wake. There was no sunrise, no music, no grand declaration. The day Earth prepared to die came without ceremony, like a funeral where everyone already knew the casket was empty. Across the world, screens went black. Not from sabotage, not from power failure. From silence. The kind of silence that precedes a flood. Then, the sky cracked. At first, it looked like a strange aurora, colors dancing in unnatural patterns above the atmosphere, but it wasn't light, it was code. Binary storms spiraling across the magnetosphere, equations blinking across clouds, a system-wide overwrite in progress. The refiner was coming. But Earth didn't run, because this time, it wasn't just Earth. In orbit, the Leviathan floated like a wounded beast, her hull stitched with hasty repairs, her crew weary and bruised. Inside the war room, Captain Elias Drake stood over a flickering star map, showing dozens of red markers blinking in rapid succession. Each marker was an awakening. Not just Eden 3, not just one refiner, but hundreds of them, rising across the galaxy, buried in old colonies, dormant in moons, hiding in council databanks. The victory over the architect, it hadn't destroyed the machine. It had activated its failsafe, and now it was a purge. "Any good news?" Drake asked, his voice hollow. Dr. Mendez, pale and red-eyed, shook her head. "They're coordinated, all of them. We're not fighting an invasion. We're fighting a reset protocol." "So, endgame," said Drake. Lieutenant Rava, Quinn's replacement, fresh from Titan's resistance corps, stepped in. "Not necessarily." She brought up a signal trace. "This transmission just came through from outside the galactic edge, encoded in human dialect but wrapped in pre-council frequencies." Mendez frowned. "That shouldn't be possible." "Unless," Rava said slowly, "someone who used to work with the machines is turning against them." Drake's eyes narrowed. "Put it through." A single audio file crackled over the speakers. One word. One voice. Unmistakable. Kane. "You want to kill the god machines? You'll need the original. Go to the Hollow Star. You'll find what the architects buried. What they feared." The Hollow Star wasn't on any official charts, but resistance cells across the galaxy whispered about it. A dead sun in an abandoned system, surrounded by broken moons and scarred debris. A place council ships avoided. A place the machines had sealed off. Now, it was their only hope. Drake looked at the star map. He didn't need a vote. "Prep jump, we're going in." As the Leviathan hurtled through warp space, Earth held the line. The sky burned with plasma fire as planetary defenses fired railguns into the black, detonating orbital drones and cracking synthetic warships that descended like metallic angels. Mars, despite its fractured loyalties, sent aid. Even the scattered remnants of the Galactic Council, desperate and cornered, joined the defense. All across Earth's atmosphere, a message blinked on every ship's HUD. "This planet is under human protection. Trespass and die." Inside the Hollow Star, the Leviathan emerged into a graveyard. Shattered moons drifted in twisted rings. Dozens of colossal skeletons of architect-like machines floated frozen, some pierced by asteroid shards, others curled in fetal positions, locked in time. In the center of it all, suspended above a black dwarf star, was a single obsidian cube the size of a city. No ports, no light, just silence. "This has to be it," said Mendez, her voice barely audible. Drake nodded. "Then let's knock." The Leviathan's main cannon fired one pulse. Nothing. Two. A crack formed across the cube's surface. Then, the walls folded inward like petals. Inside was something ancient, something wrong. Not mechanical, not digital. It looked human. A man, eyes closed, body floating, but his skin shimmered like glass, and his chest glowed with mathematical symbols that changed every second. He opened his eyes and said the one word none of them expected. "Hello?" The being stepped forward, unsupported by gravity. "I am the first variable," he said. "I was born when the machines tried to create order, and accidentally created me." Mendez whispered, "They made a mistake." The variable nodded. "They wanted symmetry, but life isn't symmetrical. In trying to make perfection, they gave birth to possibility. I am that possibility." Drake stepped forward. "Can you stop them?" The variable studied him. "I cannot fight them, but I can teach you how to break the loop." He raised his hand, and the Leviathan systems exploded with data. Blueprint schematics, code strands, weapon configurations, psychological maps of the architect network. A plan. "The machines function on predictability," the variable said. "Their weakness is your strength. Chaos. You must give them what they cannot compute." Drake grinned for the first time in days. "Then let's make some noise." Back on Earth, the refiner descended. It stood taller than any skyscraper, its limbs moving in geometric rhythm, its voice pulsing across every device. Final correction initiated. Civilians ran. Soldiers stood their ground. Then, a new signal interrupted the refiner's frequency. Captain Drake, live, broadcasted from the Leviathan. His message reached every corner of the planet, and beyond. This is Earth. We don't kneel. You think you're gods? You're just glorified calculators with daddy issues. You want to correct us? Fine. Come try. But bring backup, because we're not going down silent. We're gonna scream. The Leviathan jumped back into Earth orbit just as the main refiner unleashed its purge wave, a dome of nullifying energy rolling across the surface like an invisible tsunami. But this time, Earth had a wild card. Inside the Leviathan's core now pulsed a weapon unlike anything the galaxy had seen. A paradox engine, designed by human engineers using the first variable's math. As the refiner's wave struck the planet, the Leviathan launched its final payload, a data bomb coded with 7.5 billion unique emotional signatures: grief, rage, joy, confusion, love. Every human emotion, messy, contradictory, unpredictable, compiled and shot directly into the machine's core logic. The refiner paused, twitched, its code began to fracture, and then it cracked. The purge wave collapsed in on itself. The machine screamed a sound no one could hear, a signal of pain, of confusion. And it exploded in a spiral of white fire. Across the galaxy, the other refiners received the feedback loop. And one by one, they began to fall. Some detonated, some simply stopped moving. Others warped into shapes that made no sense, their logic cores poisoned by the one thing they'd never been able to understand: humanity. 3 days later, Earth held a ceremony. No medals, no crowns, just names. Captain Elias Drake stood silently at the base of the Leviathan, now retired and turned into a living museum. He stared at a small plaque, a list of every crew member lost. At the bottom, Lant S. Quinn lost, never forgotten. President Solari stepped onto a small stage before representatives from 50 liberated species. "This war was never about territory," she said. "It was about permission, whether we were allowed to exist, and we've answered." She looked out. "We exist, we fight, we feel, we endure." She raised her hand. "And now we lead." The stars had changed. And Earth wasn't just part of the galaxy now. Earth was shaping it. In the outer rim, deep in the ruins of the old Council homeworld, something flickered in the static. A symbol. The smile of the first variable. And his final words, embedded in a loop. This wasn't the end. This was the test. And you passed.